All right. Let's see. Uh, Sorry. That was my fiance dragging table, and that sounded like my fart, huh? Okay. Um, Hello everyone. Thank you so much for thank you so much for coming back to my lesson today. In case you haven't joined my lesson before, my name is Matthew Kim. I'm currently a high school teacher in Wisconsin, in Wisconsin State. I'm a social studies teacher. So right now, this year, I'm teaching U.S. history and economics. And when I was in college, I actually majored in both history and economics. And as I studied more and more and more in college, I got more fascinated with economics than history. The main reason is because when economics acts more like a lens for you to look through when you look at history. You know, history is just a series of recorded human events in the past. And depending on what approach you take, you can interpret and learn so much from it. And of course, one of it is economics, right? So you can learn all these economic principles. And then when you look back at the history, you can take the economic approach to really diagnose what went well, what didn't go well, how we can improve, what things should be prevented for the future, right? So I really, my mission right now in my high school, and which I also hope to establish as I work with you guys more and more, is to build that financial literacy. You know, literacy means be able to read book, right? Be able to read letters, right? Characters. But financial literacy is then how to read anything related to finance. You know, how to manage your credit card, to how to understand all the economic events that are happening, right? So in doing so, I think a great well, it's hard to say introductory, but one of the highlighting events that happened in our history, financially speaking, that was so impactful globally would have been the 2008 housing market crash. It has many different names. Some people say Lehman Brothers incident. Some people say 2008 subprime mortgage crisis. There are a lot of different ways that you can name this. But through this lesson, what I hope to achieve is one, for you to understand how mortgage market works, and two, for you to understand for you to explain why 2008 subprime mortgage crisis happened, and lastly, three, to introduce you to a great movie where you can actually understand all this in so much deeper level. A lot of my students in my econ class, sure, sure. A lot of my students in my econ class actually, after this lesson, watched the movie. I'm not sure how it is in Taiwan, but in America, the movie is free on YouTube. So stay tuned with that. Now, before I start the lesson, I want to share one quote with you. No. Does anybody know a American writer named Mark Twain? He is the one that wrote a book called Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. That is a very popular book in America. Yeah, he looks like this old guy. He kind of looks like Einstein, right? But one of the quotes that he said was, "It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so." And I believe before we talk about this 2008 house market crash, this is a quote that just penetrates through entire event. So let me just break down what this quote means. It when they say ain't, that means not. So it is not what you don't know that gets you into trouble. So that means you don't get into trouble for something you don't know, but it's what you know for sure that just ain't so. Meaning, you get into trouble for something that you think for sure, you know for sure, but in reality, you didn't know the full detail either. So oftentimes, right, the reason why teachers also need to continue to study is because if they teach the same materials of US history, Taiwanese history over and over and over, they think that they know the all the full picture of it, but that's not always the case. There's always something more to learn. And unfortunately, in the event that we'll talk about with the housing market crisis, it is exactly um, the reason it happened is arguably because everybody believed that they knew what they were doing, and it turns out they had no idea what they were doing. So, um, as we're delving into this issue, let's first of all talk about mortgage and some of the basic terms. I have some Mandarin translation to some of the most important keywords or phrases, and I hope you find that helpful too. If you have any questions, I will have my messages chat also with me so that you can ask me questions at any time. Um, and maybe that's why history always repeats itself. That's right, because unfortunately, people. Now I can talk about that on and on and on. You see, I think the reason why history repeats itself is not because we is we still do teach history, but the problem is still history repeats. I think there are two big things that come into play, right? The first thing is we don't have the critical thinking skill. We just take history as a fact, as something that happened in the past, and we rarely take time to kind of uh, apply some of the thinking of the time into ourselves. So a lot of times what I try to do in my class is to synthesize the knowledge, and always I tell my students to not look at history in the perspective of a future person, but in the perspective of a person living at the time, you know? And the second big reason why history repeats itself is, I think, really pure arrogance. We all think we are different. We all think we won't make the same mistake. But unfortunately, the more I study history, the more I find that we are just the same. All right. Now let's get back to mortgage. Sorry about the sidetracking. So first of all, mortgage is simply put housing loans. So when you take out mortgage, that means you're taking out housing loans. You're borrowing money from the bank to buy a house. Usually these loans are about 10, 15, or 30-year long. Second term is principal. I'm going to mention all these words over and over in my lesson. That's why I'm going through them really quick. Principal is the actual amount of money you still owe to the bank. All right. And interest or an interest rate are additional percentage of money you will still need to pay to the bank along with the principal balance. So if you take out a mortgage of $10,000 with 5% interest rate, you are required to pay the bank $10,000, which is going to be the principal, and plus $500 of interest, right? So in total, you'll pay back $10,500. Now, oftentimes, many people actually pay that $10,500 by dividing it into a monthly payment. So monthly payment is fixed set of money you pay back every month. Some portion of this money will go to the interest payment, while some will go to the principal. Now, since we are not in the personal finance class, I'm not gonna get really into the detail of it, but in the beginning of your loan term, usually most of your money will go to the interest payment, and then once you pay off the interest, then rest of the money will actually go into pay your balance principal. So that's why if you want to actually finish your mortgage payment really, really early, a lot of financial advisors suggest that you actually make additional payment on top of the monthly payment. But again, that's again sidetracking. I just want to give you guys as much information as possible. So cut me a slack. Now we have this status called delinquent. Delinquent is basically you are delinquent if you don't pay back your mortgage by the deadline. And you'd be in the state of default if you are delinquent for 90 days. Okay. And lastly, once you reach 120 days of delinquent, meaning 4 months, right? The bank will take your house away and sell your house to make money for themselves. Okay. Now, Does anybody have any question about any of the term that we just covered so far? Most of you like most of you understand just fine. So like maybe like thumbs up would be great. All right, perfect, perfect. Okay, okay. Thank you. So let's move on. Now, when we talk about mortgage, there are two different types of mortgage. You see, in America, most of mortgage are fixed rate. So fixed rate mortgages are basically where monthly mortgage payment remain the same for the rest of the life of the loan. Okay, and interest rate is equal to the current market rate, and it's not going to change. So let's imagine that when you on the day that you take out mortgage, you will take out mortgage for with 13% interest rate, and maybe next year the market rate has gone up to 15 or even 20%, but your mortgage rate interest rate will stay the same as 13% until the end of the mortgage period. Why? Because it's a fixed rate, and most of the time in America, most of these mortgages are fixed rate. I know that in European countries, a lot of the mortgage rates are actually what we call adjusted rate mortgage, also known as ARM. Now, what is ARM then? ARM is a monthly mortgage payment as well, but it will be kind of same for a set period of time. But then after that, what that set period of time is also called the promotion rate, and then after that, the interest rate will follow the market. So you take out loan when there you can actually take ARM in America too. Um, so in America, you take out ARM, and because bank, well, I'll actually get to that too. Banks will want you to actually take ARM because most of the time interest rates will tend to go up in a long run. So for banks, it is better for you to sign ARM. So to attract you, they will actually set what we call like promotional rate. So let's imagine, let's see, if I can actually write something on the whiteboard. Well, how about this? Give me just a second. Mm, Let's see. Give me a second. So let's say Can you guys see this notepad fine? All right, so it seems like you guys can see it just fine. All right, so let's say fixed rate um, in 2024, let's imagine, as 15%. Okay. Now for ARM, it will follow annual interest interest rate, right? So which means for ARM promotion rate basically is something like for 3 years or for 2 years for for the first 2 years um, guarantee guaranteed interest rate of, let's say, 10%, and then follow the market interest rate. So with this promotion rate, the banks will attract mortgage takers to actually choose ARM because they will say, hey, it's going to be cheaper to take ARM for the first 2 years, and then, we'll follow the market. So for non-educated loan takers, they will think, oh my God, ARM seems like so much better option than fixed rate because you can save 5% of interest rate, and that is huge actually. And when it comes to interest, 5% saving 5% is huge. Like, so let's imagine you're taking out about $50,000, $50,000, no, $500,000 loan, and the interest rate of that interest amount would for that would be, if it is $50,000, then mm, then the interest is going to be, no, what am I saying? $500,000. Then 5% of that is going to be $25,000, right? So by it from going from 15, exactly, Rebecca. So it will be better for only 2 years. But still, people will think like that. This is how banks will sell you, right? Sell this ARM product saying, hey, for the first 2 years, 3 years promotional years, you get to save 5%, and that 5% means that you're almost saving $25,000. Then people will be like, all right, well, that sounds good, right? And we'll actually get back to the problem with this very soon. But let me actually share my lesson slide again. Let's see. So once again, due to promotion in the ARM for the first few months or even for the first few years, the interest rate is set quite low. But once promotion rate expires, yeah, right, that's where the problem's gonna set in. Now, here's the setting of this whole issue with housing market crisis in 2000, well, leading to in years leading to 2008. So as what the graph on the left shows the housing market price in United States from 1980 all the way until 2008. So what do we see here? We can see the housing price is going up and up and up and up, right? So literally by owning a house, it is such a good investment tool. So as the housing market looked so lucrative, more and more people were lining up to take mortgages to buy houses because they're like, hey, if I buy a house now and sell it later, I can actually pay off all my mortgages, and I can actually, as long as I pay mortgages until my house price goes up, I can just sell it off and make all the money, you know? So oppor- this also means then opportunity, it is a huge opportunity for banks to make money. So if you were a bank, what would you recommend between fixed rate or ARM? I want to ask you guys too. So if you're a bank in America, would you suggest ARM or would you suggest fixed rate? That's right. That's right. You go with ARN, right? And because it is generally after promotional rate, it's gonna be higher, most likely higher interest rate than fixed rate, which means then you can also make a lot more money, right? Now, I have another question for you. We we all have we have all these people with different credit backgrounds to take out loans. Now, would we give mortgage with the same interest rate to everyone? So let's say if somebody with 471 credit score versus 704 credit score, do you think they will, when they take out mortgage, will their interest rate be the same? Different rate. That's right. It's going to be different, right? So person with higher interest rate will more likely take mortgage with low interest, and people with low credit score will actually take out loans with higher interest. That's kind of the way the world of credit works, right? Now, you see, because of the huge boom in the housing market, not only more people more people with even bad credit scores were willing to buy homes. So, so most of the time in textbook cases, a lot of the people that bought the traditionally bought homes were the people like on the right side, people with the prime mortgage takers. So prime mortgage is the kind of mortgage, it's what I would call normal or regular mortgage. So it would be because it would be kind of stupid for you to try to buy a house when you don't have a stable jobs and when you don't have enough savings, right? So regular normal mortgage is what I would call prime mortgage. And it is often taken by a person with high income who has a secure job, who also has who also has very good credit score, and also they will have enough saving for them to do what we call down payment. So down payment is the payment that you make upfront, and then for the rest of the money you actually take out the loan. So basically, like if you're buying $500,000 dollar house, you would maybe down pay about $200,000. So for the rest of $300,000, then that you would take the loan out. Now, since you're taking less amount of the loan than 500,000, interest and the amount of financial burden you will have will be a lot less, a lot lower. Now, the problem is because housing market, once again, the price was has been going up since about 1990, about I would say about 1997, 1998, because it's been constantly going up. Everybody wanted to own house. Everybody didn't mind owning house too. So even people with low income, insecure jobs, who have bad credit scores, are willing to take out loans as well, mortgages. Now, these mortgages are what we call subprime mortgages. Okay, so sub, when it is what we call prefix in English, it means like less or not as good, you know. So subprime mortgage is the kind of mortgage taken by people with low income, not not good jobs, those who don't even have enough savings to do any down payment, but they didn't mind taking loans out. Why? Because as long as they pay mortgage, the housing price will go up. And when housing price go up, and when they calculate on themselves, like, huh, now if I sell it, then I can, with that money that I sell the house with, I can pay back rest of my mortgage, and I will still make some money. You know, so even people didn't mind taking bunch of subprime mortgages. Now, in other words, Subprime mortgages will have much, much higher interest rate, right? And problem is a lot of these subprime mortgages were ARM. Why? Because you have to be a bank for a second. You're about to you're a bank and somebody came and this person doesn't have a fixed job, doesn't have any kind of saving, but still wants to take out a loan from you. Well, then first thing you'll do is well, you'll have to take your mortgage with very high interest. But second, this person is like does that person have much of a financial power? No. That person doesn't have any financial power either. So you, as a bank, you want to make as much money as possible. So if you are a bank, what would you suggest? Suggest to this person between fixed rate and ARM? Definitely you would say go with ARM. Why? Because you want to sell that mortgage, right? And in the ARM, you can say, hey, I know you're struggling to find jobs right now, but I'm sure that you're going to get a good job in 2 or 3 years from now. And in fact, we have this ARM product where we have 2 years of promotion where you can actually pay way lower than fixed rate mortgage. And and hopefully you can find a good job within the 2 years and you can actually pay you can and then we'll just follow the annual rate which it seems like it's going to stay stable for a while, you know. And that's kind of, to be honest, the only kind of mortgage that banks offered to people with low credits as well. So subprime mortgages were mostly ARM. So can you guys already kind of sense where this is going? Where this all these like all the little bits and pieces that can just spread to wildfire. It's we can start to smell something here, right? Something that some sort of a very bad business, very unstable business, right? Now, banks actually, to be honest, didn't mind. Actually, okay. Another problem with the banks was this. Banks even didn't mind giving bunch of loans out to people with didn't mind giving out bunch of subprime mortgages either. Because you have to think about it. If you're an educated banker, you'd be like, well, yes, I can charge high interest rate, but these people have such a bad credit score. You know, how can I trust this person? How can I trust this person enough that I give out my money? You know, what if that person goes default? And what if that person, yeah, goes default? Like, what should I do? Now you see, banks, they actually, for them, even giving out a lot of subprime mortgages wasn't a bad business at all. So if if well, they thought, well, people will have to pay their mortgage if those people go default. And I mean, they will have to pay their mortgage. And with the subprime mortgage, you can pay very, very, very high interest. Well, so if they do it, we make a lot of money with their high interest. But even if they actually go default, we can actually foreclose and sell with higher money. Why? Because for the bank, they are looking at this housing price as well. The housing price is going up. So if one way or the other, even if the subprime mortgage takers pay their mortgage or not pay it, one way or the other, banks can make money, you know. So they were thinking that, so they literally kind of said, well, people will have to pay their mortgage. If those people go default, we'll foreclose and sell with higher money. Sounds great. And here is more snowball factor that adds to the snowball effect. Banks also then began to think, wait, we want to make some more money, like more than just these subprime mortgages. What can we do? And banks thought to themselves, how about we mix a bunch of subprime mortgages with a bit of prime mortgages, and then kind of turn this mixture into an investment product for private investors like you and me, individual investors to buy. Since it has some private mortgages, the credit rating won't be that bad. And and it turns out that was true. So, and they're like, what would be a fancy name for this? Oh yeah, let's actually go with mortgage backed securities. MBS. So we're going to call this as MBS. Now, MBS, so it says security, right? Usually the word security is only used for some investment products that are very, very, very stable and very, very secure. So oftentimes securities are often referred uh, is another name for government bonds. And we last week we learned how stable government bond is, right? So government bonds are usually called securities, but banks began to call this invest mixture of prime and subprime mortgages together, this mixture as mortgage-backed securities under one premise, under one theory that everybody will pay their mortgages. Because who wouldn't, right? Now, for auto loan, if people take out auto loans, maybe some people won't pay their money for their car. So we can foreclose the car, but still that person has a place to live. But for mortgage, if people don't pay their mortgage, then they lose a place to live. And who want that to happen, right? So so under that premise, under that theory, they thought that this investment product will be something as secure and stable as government bond. Now, the MBS, this investment product, has been around since 1968. But let's just take a look at 2000, year 2000, when housing prices were going up. In 2001, 54% of mortgages in a MBS were subprime, and about 46% were prime mortgages. So because it is MBS, that one MBS product has like 10,000 mortgages in there. So it is considered to be a very stable, diversified investment product. But the thing is this, are there, like, I can ask you guys too, in a country, like even in Taiwan, are there more rich people or are there more poor people? Obviously, there are more poor people, right? Rich people are very few, and poor people are a lot bigger population, right? Then what kind of mortgages would be more abundant in a country at this time? Definitely a lot more subprime mortgages, right? And as banks are making this kind of grouping all this prime and subprime mortgages and selling as MBS, mortgage backed security, by the time it gets to 2006, 2 years before the housing market crisis, we the one MBS, 75% of them were subprime mortgages because they were running out of prime mortgages. So think about that. Like, so I would usually say MBS. So I'm not sure if this is a good like a bed, like good analogy. But if you're going to skydiving and about 75% of time, 3 out of 4, you're going that parachute's not gonna open. Like, would you go for that investment or would you go for that gamble? No. But but the thing is, the credit rating at this time still gave this kind of sub mortgage backed security as triple A rating, AAA. Yeah, yeah, because they still thought that 25% of prime mortgages in an MBS is still enough, sufficient to be credited as AAA. So here, here is a little bit of a summary of a mortgage-backed securities in a nutshell. Okay, so in a nutshell means like in summary. Okay, in a nutshell means summary. Um, so on the top left, we see the house, right? So mortgage loan to a property buyer. So that's you. So you take money from the bank, and then the you will pay interest and repays loan, right? Now in a bank, a, a single bank wouldn't just work with you, right? A bank would work with millions of other home buyers, right? So in their server, they will have a pool of mortgages, so much of mortgages, right? So in the bank, they will have with all the pool of mortgages, they're gonna organize mortgages according to very seriously secure, so prime mortgages, and the unsecured, and kind of somewhere in the middle, and kind of mix them together, right? Like chow fan, right? Chow fan. So you mix them together, and then you make that into what we call the mortgage-backed security, and then you're gonna sell to these private investors in orange, right? And these private investors can be someone as rich as Warren Buffett, but it can be also someone who knows about the system and can buy. So even like you and I can even buy this mortgage-backed security. So what would happen? What is the benefit of that? Now, since bank is actually kind of making into a mixture, a bundle, and then sell it to private investors, and investors actually buy that MBS, that sales of MBS will provide money to the bank as well. So in a way, banks are making money by two ways, right? One way is through home buyers to pay back the interest in the loan. Another way is for the banks to buy through the money that they get by selling the MBS to the people. Okay. Now, here's the problem though. Here is the problem. We can see between 2008 and 2009, what do we see in the adjust ARM here? The adjust interest rate in the ARM, it skyrockets, right? And this black line over here is when the house market crash happened. So literally over here, the ARM skyrocketed. And what did I say about ARM? What kind um what kind of mortgage did most subprime mortgages have? ARM, right? So look at what kind of look at look at for how long housing market housing market seemed valuable. It was going up ever since 1998. So maybe people will kind of read the hype of it, and they will get on, buying houses maybe for early 2000, like 2003 to 2005. Everybody's buying it, buying it, buying it, buying it. And by 2008, there might have been some people still buying a lot of starting out the ARM, but most of these people were already done with their promotional rate. Most people were already done with the promotion rate, so they are kind of going with the flow, right? They're going with the annual interest rate. Okay. So therefore, when this ARM skyrocketed like this, the not ARM but adjustable rate skyrocketed, what do you think would have happened? Do you think subprime mortgage takers could pay their monthly payment? No, no, no. And here is the statistics. So we talk about that the delinquency means, unable to pay, make the monthly payment, right? So take a look at this. Look at the red. Yes, banks will have a lot of bad loans. That's right. And look at the red line over here. This is the delinquency rate in North Carolina alone. North Carolina alone. Look at ever since 2008 with the a adjustable rate skyrocketing. Look at how 90 plus days delinquent rate has skyrocketed as well. 90 days delinquent means default, and most likely after like 90 days, depend on which banks you have, banks can actually foreclose right away. And look at this, right? Most subprime most people with subprime mortgages couldn't pay back their mortgage anymore. That's right. It just skyrocketed. Now, here's the thing. So we have a situation where because the adjustable rate suddenly went up so much, so many people with subprime mortgage who already don't have secure jobs and who have to pay interest, very high interest rate, that alone, and that interest rate just literally right now exponentially increased. And as a result of that, so many people became default. They couldn't pay back their housing loan for more than 3 months. Now, here's a quick thing. Any like if then what does that mean for the banks? That means then for the banks, they now have so many houses that they have to foreclose. And what do they do after they foreclose the house? They have to sell the house, right? Then what would that mean to the price of the houses? What do you think? Do you think the price of house would go up or go down when there's a suddenly huge influx of housing supply? So many houses are up for sale right now. Go down drastically. That's right. That's absolutely right. And here, holy cow! Every time I see this graph, it just spooks spooks me. You know. So so what we see over here is the change in the U.S. home price. And look at in 2008, the real price change has gone all the way down, even almost to negative 20%. So until 2008, we've seen the housing prices were going up and up and up and up and up. We've seen that in other graph too, right? Even the real prices were going up and up and up and up. Now, when we say nominal and real, only difference is inflation adjusted. So real housing price change is kind of what I'm trying to look at. So even with the that is this like a green line over here. So it was going up and up and up. But with adjustable rate going high, so high, right? We are noticing that price, real prices plummeted in 2008 as subprime mortgage properties flooded the market. So banks had to sell. They were trying to sell this even if they make 20% loss. 20% loss in their investment. So you basically spend $100 only to get only $80 back. That's such a waste, right? And that was what was happening in the U.S. housing market at this time. So this led to what we call the chain reaction, right? So Home buyers cannot pay the interest, cannot repay the loan. So banks, all the mortgages that they had basically became void, or basically became just a scrap piece of paper. It became worthless, had no value anymore. Then what would happen to all the value of MBS that they make? Well, first of all, because all these mortgages just became a piece of paper, uh, they cannot make mortgage-backed securities, right? Like how can you make a firewood bundle of firewood when there's no trees anymore, right? So MBS, you can't sell them anymore. And what does that mean? They cannot sell new MBS, nor actually get they cannot sell new MBS, which means they cannot actually get more money uh, through that sale. And that also means all the private investors that invested in MBS, suddenly their investment product just became a piece of paper, nothing. So all the investors that invested so much money into MBS might go under as well. And the reason why we call this housing market situation, housing market crisis, as also Lehman Brothers incident or Lehman Brothers crisis, is that Lehman Brothers is the one of the biggest investment banks on the Wall Street, and they were very aggressive in their investment strategies, and they actually made so much money with the MBS. However, with this housing market crisis on September 15, 2008, this Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. They couldn't operate anymore, so they closed down. And as you can see, ever since September 2008, the unemployment rate has skyrocketed. Now, why? Because so many houses, right? So many houses became worthless. All the Americans that bought a house at this time, thinking that they could make so much money out of this, now they can no longer dream of making that money. Um, I have a student in my high school actually telling me that his dad bought a house, the house that they're living in 2005, when the price of the house was super high. And with this housing market crash, the father, who was making about six figures, which means about $1 million a year, he was struggling so much because of such a high price of the house that he bought to begin with, that student told me that his father just finished paying the um, mortgage like 2 months ago, and he took out this loan as a 10-year loan. So think about that. He bought the house in 2005, and then he just paid back in 19 years later, right? And when you have to increase the deadline for the mortgage, you have to pay penalty as well. But because housing market crisis was so detrimental to so much American people, that all their savings, all their investment just disappeared just like that, right? So unemployment rate has gone up, and in case you don't actually feel like what this means, every 1% of increase in unemployment rate basically is equivalent to 40,000 people dying from starvation. They will die either from starvation or loss of home or exposure to danger as a result in America alone. So, look, on September 2008, it was, let's just round it down even to 6%. But by May, it went up to, let's even round it down here to 9%. So that means 3% has gone up in unemployment rate, which also that means about 12,000 people starved and died from lack of housing and from starvation. So the movie that I want to introduce you guys now is this movie called The Big Short. Now, The Big Short is basically about these four guys that you see who kind of notice all these symptoms that I told you about and decided to bet against the housing market. Now, for in order for me, yeah, how can? Yeah, it is a very good movie. Like when I was studying economics, I'll be honest, I actually didn't have this much of a knowledge about housing market. Housing market. It was not until I started teaching econ in my high school that I really studied. And then when I knew all the situations, and then when I watched this movie, like everything made perfect sense, right? Everything made perfect sense. Now, in order for you to understand that, then I think I gave you about 99% of knowledge for you to understand this movie. Only 1% of knowledge that I haven't told you yet is what is the concept of shorting, right? So I know I have about 5 minutes and I'll try to actually get it done within 5 minutes, but let me give you what we call a crash course or a lightning course on what a shorting is. Now we have in stock market, we have an idea of in stocks, yeah, shorting is that, but even like kume or something, but But in stocks, usually the traditional way is buy low and sell high, right? So you buy like Nvidia stock when it was $50 and you sell it when it's now $168. Then you would actually then make $118, right? Like 100, yeah, $118 or $108. Um, so that's kind of like a familiar concept. Now with the short is a little bit different. So I'll let me see if I can um, um, even demonstrate this with a little bit of a very poor, very poor drawing here. Give me just a second. Sharing. Um, okay, so let's say because the only person I know in class right now is Miss Lee, Shirley Lee. So I'm just gonna use you as my example. Okay. So let's imagine that we have Miss Lee over here. Okay. And we have whatever investment company that she wants to use. So in America, one of the biggest company would be Fidelity. That is just an investment company. All right. And let's talk about Nike stock for a second. Nike. Now, let's say that Shirley, let's say that Shirley has a friend in China, like where there's a big Nike factory. So and this friend actually is working, her friend is working in the Nike factory in China, and this friend actually told Shirley saying, hey, actually, Nike is supposed to use a very good like materials and the textiles, but they're using very bad chemicals. They're using all the very, very low quality fabrics now. And nobody knows about this. And I try to like tell this to other people, but everybody like my supervisor silenced me. So Shirley knows. Shirley heard this issue news, and it's only her for now that she actually knows about this situation. Now, public doesn't know this issue as much yet. And let's say the Nike stock is currently I don't know, $150. Okay? $150. So if Shirley knew that if this news actually becomes more public, then she knows that Nike stock is going to go down. So she decides to bet against Nike. So that is what we call shorting. So you see, in a traditional stock sense, you you make money by buying low and sell high. So when you buy a stock, when the stock goes up, when stock price goes up, you make money. In shorting, here I'll write it too. In short, you make money. You make money when stock goes down. Now, this may not make sense. Like you'd be like, how the heck would that make sense? So here, let me demonstrate. So Shirley uses Fidelity, investment company, for all her stock trading. So Shirley would actually reach out to Fidelity and say something like, um, short, short one Nike, Nike. Now, then Fidelity will go into their all their servers. And then since Fidelity is an investment company, right? Since they are the investment company, they must have one Nike stock that's kind of laying around, right? So what they will do when Shirley says short Nike, then what Fidelity will do is they will sell this Nike at this price, $150, which is the current price, okay? Current price, and then give that $150 to Shirley's investment account. Okay? So in Shirley's investment account, she will have $150. So what's happening? Now Shirley has $150 and Shirley technically owes Fidelity one Nike because she shorted it, right? Now the waiting game starts. So few months later, now the news media released the information. Sorry. Yeah, news media released the information saying, "Hey, Nike is using bad synthetic. They're using synthetic materials. They're using very bad fabrics and everything." So what would happen to Nike? Now their stock's going to go down, right? So instead of $150, let's say they went down to 100, and Shirley would think, hmm, nah, I think this news is so critical that it's going to go down even more. And as what Shirley expected, it actually went down again. So it went down to, let's say, $50. Okay. So two-thirds of the original price has gone down. So Shirley will be like, all right, now I think this is enough. I think now the Nike stock cannot go down anymore. So Shirley will now again reach out to Fidelity, but in a little different way. This time, Shirley will reach out to Fidelity and say, instead of short Nike, she will say cover one Nike now. Then what they will do is They will take this $150, they will use this $150 in her account to buy back the Nike at the price of $50, the current price. Then how much money will Fidelity take out from Shirley's account? Only $50, right? Because that's how much Nike stock is. So for Fidelity, with the price of $50, they will buy back the Nike stock. So now it's going to be one Nike. Then Fidelity has gone back to where the original spot, right? Shirley doesn't own Fidelity one Nike stock anymore, right? But then in her savings account, how much money will she have? She she will still have $100, right? That's how shorting works. And going back to our big short, what you are seeing, presenting, going back to frustrating. Going back to Big Short, these guys noticed that the market is bound to go down. Just like how Shirley thought that Nike stock is going to go down when the news goes out to public. So these guys decide to short the housing market. And you're about to see what kind of criticisms and laughter and mocking that they received. You know, this is one of the very few movies where you know what's going to happen at the end. But the point of the movie is not to watch all the way at the end, but the point is to see the process, right? So you will see them doubting themselves. You'll see them convincing one another. You'll see them even carrying out their own research to figure out and going out to the field to really see what's happening. And at the end of the day, they all realize that yes, the housing market is going to crash and they bet against it. And that's what happened. And how did it happen? As I've told you, all this thing, right? Unfortunately, I got over about 5 minutes, but does anybody have any question? I think that's all I have for now. Like I just want to hear from Cover. So Cover is when Shirley will tell Fidelity, the investment company, to buy back that Nike stock because she because she told Fidelity to short the Nike stock, right? So Fidelity's or Cover, or you can also say redeem. Yep, that is fine too. A lot of people also say cover in the investment market too. So one way or the other. Now, I know this concept is not really an easy concept to digest, but I just want to see on the comment section from 1 to 10, like how much did you guys understand? Like 1 as I don't get it, 10 as like 10 as like I get everything. Nice. 9.9, 10. Oh, thank you. 9, 9, 8. That's good. Nice. Nice. Perfect. Perfect. Oh, I'm very humbled. Thank you guys. Thank you. Well, if you guys still have any questions, oh, not that. If you guys still have questions, sure, Ms. Lee has my email address, so you guys can reach out to me through there. But I'll end my lesson today here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King, for your professional business courses. I think maybe we need to watch it twice. I will just send the video link to all of you. And if possible, you can just turn on your microphone or to access question, and you can show you your handsome faces. Let's have a good photo. And all the photos will be put into our album, which is sent to you immediately. 好，大家如果方便的话，帮我们开个镜头。那如果不方便也没有关系，我们就是反正就是有做纪念。那非常感谢国教署的计划，so that we can meet Mr. King every year. And I really love his presentation with professional and passion in his lecture. 谢谢老师同学。那你也可以放在你的那个多元表现都是可以的。我觉得放在英文课的那个学长也是非常棒的。好，来3、2、1，感谢愿意开镜头的同学。再等我一下，我再开一下。好，谢谢大家。那个次级房贷的题目，其实在我们的我们的那个高职的应用科的考题有考过。那我觉得我们的商概也有读过，大家们都可以验证所学。如果大家知道如何来投资，相信对未来人生会非常的棒。那同学如果有问题的话，可以开麦克风。老师们，谢谢大家参与。我觉得有点难度，有点深度，所以大家都可以自己再回放。谢谢宋老师的鼓励。Thank you, Miss Song or Mr. Song for the encouragement. And we will just write the feedback and send that to Master King. I believe that he will know that we Taiwanese students really love his courses. Thank you all for your feedback. And in the future, we are going to have some other international courses by inviting people from other countries so that we will broaden our horizon.
Mm.
It is said that the weather is so cold in America.
Well, depending on where you are, right? In Midwest here, it's really cold, but in California, it is pretty warm. So, I lived in Wisconsin long enough to have the wisdom that there's no way you can fight the weather, but to just run away from it. So actually, next week I'm gonna go to California to visit my family there. My is that right? 我的家庭住在San Diego. So
Wow, close to
so is everything good? Good to go?
yes.
All right. All right. Thank you very much, Shirley. Thank you so much for the opportunity, everyone.
Thank you so much. We are going to
Yeah.
meet in year 2025.
Oh, yeah. Everyone, 大家新年快乐.
圣诞快乐，新年快乐！下学期我们还
Okay.
会再相见哦，各位同学，麻烦就丢同学、丢老师一起来，因为这样子的课程实在是很棒、很难得，就是老师在美国学校真的上课的课程。Yeah, Merry
Merry
Christmas and
Christmas
have a
too. Happy
good
New
year.
Year. All right. Bye bye.
拜拜。